Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks, the podcast where we help doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And today, we're talking about the old adage, the rich get richer, why that is, and how you can get there too.
Part of the game is earlier on in the game, you've got to limit what you're spending. So in our game, you can't, if you spend it, we can't help you invest it. We can't help you save it. The rich do get richer, and we want you to be there too.
Tax code is out there, and it communicates to us as taxpayers what we're allowed to do. Most people read that as what we're not allowed to do. No, it's like rules to a game. You go play a game, the first thing you want to do is read the rules so you know what to do.
All right. I hear you say this a lot, Bob. The rich get richer. And you're like, well, no, duh. That's how it's set up.
Usually it sounds like this, though. But the rich get richer.
That's right. I have to emphasize that.
Yeah. Tell us why that is. What does that even mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes so much sense. I mean, we hear that all the time, and it's said as it, like what Joe is mimicking me. I say it that way because it's being said in a form of almost like a jealousy or as an accusation or some kind of an attack. And the reality is, it's when you look at the IRS tax code, which is a legal system, right? It's the government makes laws that the tax system matches and mirrors those laws of what it is. So it's out there. The tax code is out there, and it communicates to us as taxpayers what we're allowed to do. Now, most people read that as what we're not allowed to do. No, it's like rules to a game, right? When you go play a game, the first thing you want to do is read the rules so you know what to do. Tax code is the same thing. These are rules. We've talked in other episodes about different things like an accredited investor or alternative assets and all this kind of stuff. They're all rules. They're telling you what you can do. And the tax code is exactly the same way. And if you were to gamify the tax code, right, and you were to look at it as a video game and say, okay, if I am on level 1 and I want to get to level 2, I have to pass level 1. I have to get all the clues. I have to beat all the little people or aliens or whatever game you're playing, right? You have to do everything to unlock the door from 1 to 2. Okay?
And this makes, pardon me for interrupting, but this makes logical sense, even not just with the tax code. Just look at a normal human trajectory. Like when you're a teenager and you start working and maybe you're mowing lawns and you're making, $10 a lawn and it takes you an hour and a half to do it. Whatever it is, like you start out making a lot less money than you do. Now, hopefully over time, you increase your skill sets and your knowledge and your learning so that you can add more value to the time that you show up. And when you're in your 40s or 50s, hopefully you advance to a place where you're earning a lot more because the value you add is a lot more. And I love the analogy of the video game, Bob, because it's so apropos. It's like, towards the end of some of the video games that you might play, it's a lot easier to do things than in the beginning. You're all powered up or you've got more, whatever it might be. And that makes the game easier than in the beginning. And I think the jealousy comes out for people who are struggling in the beginning of their journey, is they're looking at those other people where it actually is easier and the rich are getting richer because they've already gone through all of those earlier levels. They had to be where you're at too. And so I think just even outside of the tax system, this just makes logical sense.
Well, in one day in the future, who knows what that is, we'll all be able to click on a button and see the history of somebody's struggle through their decades of history to get to that point.
That would be, I want that button. That would be incredible.
Right? Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, watching Jeff Bezos working out in, this small little room trying to figure out how to sell books online. Right. And the evolution of that, or, Steve Jobs or the Hewlett Packard and seeing all these different things being done in garages or dorm rooms or whatever, and the struggles. Right.
And all the people, this gives me chills thinking about it because this is the coach inside of me, but like, where are all of those what would have become Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and all these people who gave up right before the moment happened. Like I want that button.
Yeah.
Where was it where they gave up? So I would just encourage you, if you're listening to this podcast, I don't care if you're a doctor or a business owner, whatever you are, part of this is don't give up. Like there is going to be that moment that breaks free, and you're not going to get there without that pain and that heartache that you're in right now.
Yeah. And it's basically the evolution of learning, right? Not looking at success and failure, but looking at those moments of education of how do I learn from that? You know, everyone says, oh, you learn so much from failure. You know, it's because we don't spend time learning from success, right? If you've already done it, you got to learn, why did I do this? How did I get successful? And what do I need to do to continue that? That's where a lot of people stop, right? You can't rest on your laurels, right? Is the terminology that what they say. But the tax code basically says that. So if you're a W-2 employee working minimum wage, well, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of access to the tax code. You don't have a lot to get a lot, right? And I'm not trying to say that in a demeaning way, but as you put in the experience and time and education, like our doctors do, that you're watching this, doctor, you've given up a decade of your life in education and training and skill set, and you get compensated in a reward of that. Right. So all of a sudden you actually have access to higher levels. But unfortunately, what we see a lot of times is their professionals are at a lower level in the game. Right. They hired a coach who only knows how to get to level 2. Right. So they get you from 1 to 2, but they're not helping you go through 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 where you actually should be.
Right.
Right. Because there's a different level of expertise and experience in that professional. And what they're able to do.
And it's not degrading them
at all.
That's just what they serve. That's where they're at. That's okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So in the medical field, you have specialties, but you're all called doctors, but you don't all do the same thing, right? And it's the same thing true in the investment, tax, finance, insurance world. All of those are separate specialties, and there's subspecialties in each of those specialties. Right. So it's key to understand. I got to look for someone who has a specialty who can get me to level 7. And then once I'm at level 7, I have access to more of the tax code, which is what the wealthy, that's their first rate of return. And if you look at the wealthy, you don't have one business. They don't have one asset. You, doctor, right now are one asset, whether it's your own practice or you're as an employee. You have one asset, and that's you. And you're the one generating that revenue, which is great. But if you want to get to level 7 and get more access to the tax code and save more money on taxes, the IRS says you got to do more. They don't just say, snap a finger, wave a wand, wish it, pray it. No, you got to do it.
Right.
Well, how do I do it? Back to the education, back to the expertise, back to building a team. You know, we do a lot of things, and we've spoken about in different episodes of different areas of assets that we've helped build and stuff. It's not Bob Wolf with all this knowledge. It's not Joe with all this knowledge or Aaron with all this knowledge. We bring in partners that have this knowledge so they understand that we can do an outcome that's predictable and positive, proactive for you to get you to level 7. Or whatever that may be. And then when you get to level 7, we have members at level 7, and great, let's bring in some other partners and let's see what else we need to do to get 8, 9, and 10. And that is why the wealthy get wealthier. They just have more to get more. And that is how the game is played. That's how the tax code's written. And so if you want to gamify this, you got to learn how to play the game.
And I think some of this, part of the game is earlier on in the game, you've got to limit what you're spending. So in our game, you can't, if you spend it, we can't help you invest it. We can't help you save it. And many of the doctors that we work with, their earnings certainly outpaces what their spending is for their lifestyle expenses, their charitable giving, their savings, their investing. Like they're earning more than they need to live their life. Some people, sadly, they get to a place and I think they feel stagnant or bored. And so they start spending more to compensate for that. And that's not the game that you want to play. That's the wrong game to play. That game ends very predictably, and it's with a lot of stress and frustration and fear and anxiety. Move to a place of peace and prosperity intentionally.
And I mean, if we continue to use the game analogy, is that if you take that route and you were able to get to level 3, and then you started making decisions like Joe was talking about, you may die and have to use a new life back at number 1, level
Right.
1, right? And you got to go through it again. And why do that?
And so many doctors we talk to, I've talked to a lot, where they say, yeah, if I hadn't made these bad investments, I'd be retired already.
Yeah.
And part of it is because you took unnecessary risks to try to get something. You tried to accelerate the process. So the rich get richer. That is true, because they're using more of the tax code and they're making more money, and they're requiring less to live off of as a percentage of their income. But when you start making these really risky investments in things that are, it's not going to serve you well. And then, like Bob said, then you've got to go back to the beginning. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is years have gone by. You're now older. You have less opportunities. So sometimes you then feel like, oh, now I need to increase the level of risk because I need it to happen faster.
Mm-hmm.
I would just encourage everybody, you are where you are and you can't change that, right? You are here. The decisions you make from here moving forward, that's in your control. So if you've not had someone who's come in and holistically looked at your life and said, okay, where can we utilize these tools that the ultra wealthy use? What Aaron, how do we open up each podcast? Unlocking the secrets to build generational wealth, right? There are secrets. There are things that are out there that you can use. Let us help you deploy those things so that you can be the wealthy getting wealthier.
So I think that's a really good takeaway, is that if you don't have a lot, maybe the first step is looking at that spending, because the bigger the gap between what you are earning and what you're spending, that's what you have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think another point that we want to make is that if you do have a lot that's sitting there, but you're still paying multiple six figures every year in taxes, you're not using that as well as you could be. Those assets are not doing what they should be for you.
They're
you are.
Yeah. They're not being very productive in producing. They're not working hard for you.
Right. So use them to leverage what's available in the tax code to lower your taxes the way the wealthy do, and then you'll just get richer and richer. So that is what we help do.
Yeah. And I think people don't understand when we talk about an asset, I don't think they a lot of times understand the purpose of assets, right? And the reality is that we give these investments, these assets purpose. They don't have a brain. You're the only one with a brain. Right. And so you, as a doctor, purposely became a doctor in your specialty to earn the revenue that you earn as that asset. And all of a sudden you have all these other dollars, and you don't understand how to get these assets to being productive and working hard for you, and how to get these assets working together to work even harder. They don't have a time clock like you. They don't have to. You can only see so many patients in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. These assets don't have that. They could be 24/7, right? They're like robots. They don't sleep.
Right.
And so get them to work 24/7 for you. Get them to work harder. So when collectively they outperform your ability, at some point you're like, I can't see any more patients. I uncle, right? That's what you want. You want these assets to do that for you. Unfortunately, and we've explained why in some of our other episodes, just based on how the various games work and different professionals and that sort of stuff. So anyways.
I love it. When
the rich do get richer, and we want you to be there too.
Yeah. Heck yeah. All right. Thank you for all that. Doc, thank you for listening. We hope you found value. If you did, hit that subscribe button. Leave in the comments, any feedback you have for us or anything you'd like to hear us talk about on our next episode. We do this for you. We love to do it. And thank you for being here. So until next time, go be a Wealth Maverick.